And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Battleground Fantasy Warfare is one of my favorite games. I very much enjoy it. It has many different factions. You get the humans and the dwarves and the high elves and the lizard man and there's just so many different factions, and it's fun to play them against each other. But I understand that some people aren't real big into the fantasy thing, so you have humans, and I guess you could take humans and against humans, but now they've gone historical on us. Well, that's good for me for many reasons. Hey, I can mix historical and fantasy. It doesn't bother me if I have Hannibal fight the elves, and you historical people can go weep in the corner over such a travesty of human ignorance. But hey, I don't care. But anyway, that being said, I'm really keen on seeing historical battles used in this format. I think the Battlegrounds Fantasy Warfare format is one of the coolest and, to me, semi-realistic ways of fighting on a table. And so the Hannibal versus Rome, obviously, that's one of the biggest ancient battles. Most games that have wars in them seem to gravitate towards this time period. So, hey, I would have preferred to see some other genres maybe, but then I thought, ooh, elephants. Hannibal run elephants. So, let's take a look at this game and see if the elephants are cool. The first thing I'm going to mention here is that if you've never played a Battlegrounds Fantasy Warfare, then this isn't the review for you. You need to go read my review on that, because there I explain how the game works. I'm not going to here. I'm looking at this kind of as an expansion for Battleground Fantasy Warfare, even though it's its own game in its own right. And we'll talk a little bit about that more. I'm not going to go over the units in detail. Just want to spend a little bit here running you through so you can see the different units that are included in the game. Also, getting a closer look at my fingers. Woohoo! Aren't these neat? I really like that artwork. It just looks good when you see these guys marching across the table, seeing all the shields. It just, I don't know, it gives a good look to the game. This is one of the more better looking armies, I think, than the other else. And I just love seeing all the different colored shields as they march across the board. And there's more than shields. More shields. Isn't this great? But there's archers, etc. And here we have the elephants. Now, these elephants pale slightly when compared to the giant war elephant from the Umenzi. And I'm like, oh, not quite as big as that. But still, man, they're elephants. Isn't that great? Now, there's two armies here, Hannibal and Rome. And each have different boxes that can be marked. In fact, some of them have double boxes, you can see here. And the boxes mean different things. The Roman box is basically a reinforcement box, and every time you mark off one of those, they can't be erased. Every time you mark off one, you heal up a wound. So it's basically some more men running into battle. And then Rome also has the ability to trade units with armies that are backing up another army, as long as they both have those reinforcement hexes. The Carthaginians have a determination box. They can mark that box, and it basically means they're less likely to retreat. Increases their command by 1. Also, at the beginning of an army, you can spend 10 points, and for every 10 points you spend on its foresight, your opponent has to put out a unit before you. Now, this can be really useful, and I think it does an excellent job of portraying what a brilliant general Hannibal was, in that he can, foresee how the opponent's going to have his units laid out there on the battlefield. Now, there's two boxes that come with this setup. We have the basic game, and then we have the reinforcements. So the basic game comes with both the Roman and the Carthaginian armies, with their command decks and whatever else you need to play. And then the reinforcements brings in reinforcement decks for both of them. So if you want the whole aspect of the game, you're going to want to buy the reinforcement deck. Now, the basic game comes with the comprehensive rulebook, which is in a nice size, easy to read, better than the previous small rulebooks that were there. But something brand new to this is, in the reinforcement pack, is a scenario booklet. And this basically takes different scenarios and shows you how to set up for each one and what you need to do. And it gives a lot of background. In fact, talks a lot about how they designed the game, which, if you know anything about wargamers, is really critical, because wargamers are going to rip you up and complain about every little design decision that you've made. So putting these both together is very nice. Now, these armies stack up well against the fantasy ones. And even if everything wasn't above board, what are you going to say? There's no historical proof to prove that Hannibal couldn't take out the orcs, or that the lizardmen wouldn't rip up the Romans, or, we don't know any of that information, but we can look at it and combine it all here. So I'm very happy with these. Me personally, I'm using it as an expansion for Battleground Fantasy Warfare. Just 2 more armies, the Romans and the Carthaginians. But if you thought the fantasy stuff was bad before, you can come at this, look at this, put this together and say, hey, this is good enough for me, especially with the promise of more ancient armies on the way.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.